Good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited everyone is here. I'm going to make sure everything is set the way we need it to be set. Good evening, good evening. Checking to make sure that everyone is linking in. Welcome to the first ever presidential candidate guest speaking at a TikTok town hall where we are talking about the First Amendment tonight. I am so excited everyone is here. We're going to start to get all of our creators into the boxes in just a moment, but I want to give everybody a little bit of a heads up about how tonight is going to work. So first of all, I'm really honored to be moderating the very first TikTok town hall with guest Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Really what I want to focus on, though, is the amazing experiences of the creators on TikTok that are helping to make tonight possible. We want to make clear to everyone that we have a broad swath of amazing creators from all across TikTok. We made sure that tonight there's not going to be anybody that came in famous to TikTok and got themselves a walk-on blue check mark. Instead, we've been very conscientious about choosing creators that you guys decided to give influence. You chose them for being people with integrity, people you trusted, people you enjoyed, people you respected, and you lifted them up as creators on this app. We made sure we had a broad diversity of creators for tonight's TikTok town hall. We have folks that do family creation content. We have people that work in advocacy for small businesses, property rights advocacy. We have investigative journalists. We have individuals that work on community involvement and individuals that work on health matters. We are so excited about just everything that we have going on tonight, and I can't wait to have all of you in here with us. Everybody, this may look strange right now. I'm going to put my phone into do not disturb mode, and I'm going to see if we can get everything ready to go. Beautiful. Okay. In just a moment, I'm going to start bringing our creators up into the box as we prepare to launch this evening. I'm glad you guys are here from Ian. I hope you guys are here from a lot of the creators. Everybody suggested that we go live about an hour before Mr. Kennedy comes on. And I think that's really important so that we can talk about the implications of the TikTok ban, but not just the TikTok ban. Everything that the First Amendment is predicated on touches every facet of our lives. And I am so excited that you guys are here tonight. For those of you that don't know how we ended up getting the attention of Mr. Kennedy, there are a bunch of creators here that are here for all different reasons. Some of them are worried about protecting their small businesses during the threat of the ban. Some of them are worried about protecting their revenue streams and providing for their families. Some of us engage in political activism. Some of us met because we went down to Capitol Hill and protested the TikTok ban in person. Some of us have been actively engaging in fighting against a wide variety of injustices or monopolies here in the United States. That's what I do. I fight private equity firms. And back in February, I was invited to participate on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s podcast. That's how I met his team. I was able to get in touch with them, and I proposed, not just to him, but to a number of politicians, that they consider circumventing the mainstream media, taking the middleman and the propaganda and the filters out of communicating with our candidates and coming to the people. Because every time we see a debate, every time we see that stage, we see a whole bunch of questions asked that have absolutely nothing to do with us, that are absolutely created by billionaires, carefully screened through focus groups. Then a bunch of promises are made that never come to fruition, and not a single one of us ever had a voice. Not a single one of us ever got to ask about something that mattered to us. And so today, we're going to work on getting them to come here and talk to all of us. Let's see here. I'm just going to make sure that everybody's okay. I am so glad you guys are here. I am so glad the notifications are working. This is great news. On that note, I'm going to get ready to start bringing some of our creators up into the box so we can set the stage a little bit and start getting into the algorithm. We're going to ask, and I am not good at this part, that everybody start liking and that you start sharing it with anyone and everyone that you believe would be interested in what we're looking forward to hosting for you tonight. And we look forward to many, many more of these. Now, I'm going to start inviting up some of our creators that are here to host tonight alongside of us, and they are people that you guys know and love. Many of you suggested the creators that are here tonight. We're going to be starting off with a really strong group. We have Ian from Cancel This Clothing Company. We have Tony from Middle Road Sanity. James Lee, investigative journalist. We have Jason Linton from Dad Life Jason, who has the most amazing content and is so good about sharing real life hardships, happiness, family problems, family joy. We're bringing up Lindsay Taylor tonight. We have Callie from Sparks of Joy. We have Teralyn Romero, or Real Wicked Witch of the West, who always talks to you about banging the drum with her besties to make a difference. We're going to be bringing up Legendary Jay, who's an amazing skit creator. We will have Biddy Pep's Stephen King, who's going to be coming all the way from China. We have Jennifer Gay coming from Vegas Starfish. And I'm going to start bringing them up into the box. Now we're going to have, I think, 4 to 8 up at a time. We're going to do our best to keep it calm. When it's time for Mr. Kennedy to come in, everyone will leave the box. And then we will bring them up one at a time to assist in questioning. I may be working on tweaking the boxes as we're preparing to get into the algorithm and move through questioning. And with that, I'm going to bring up your creators so you guys can digitally give them a round of applause and keep the story going. All right. We're going to bring up Tony. Hello, friends.
Hey, hey.
I'm going to keep bringing folks in right now. Just bear with me a moment, everybody. Some of these creators have never been live before, and some of them are live every single day. So it's going to be really interesting. Get Jason up here. I don't know how many we can put up here at once.
Come in.
Okay, we have some echoing. So I think we're going to need more volume. Tony, give me guys.
Let's see. It was Ian.
Ian immediately fired. Of course it was. It's because he has the fancy camera set up. And we have the good speakers going. All right, everybody. So welcome to the first ever TikTok live town hall. And we are here tonight to talk all about the First Amendment, the TikTok ban. A lot of people have a mistaken belief that the First Amendment is just about freedom of speech. I want to be clear that the First Amendment is not only about, oh, wait, we have more. Hold on. Are more people coming in? No. Okay, we're going to keep watching for a couple that are still joining. Where is Jen from Vegas Starfish? I need to get her in here. She had sent her request and then she disappeared. Jen, if you can request again, I don't know where you disappeared to. It's not letting me invite you. So, I know we can have one more though. Let me try this a different way. Anyone know how? My little search bar is not there, guys. Well, this is why we're getting the hang of it. Okay, as soon as I see Jen's request, I'm going to get her up here. I'll keep an eye on it. All right, so a lot of people have the mistaken belief that the First Amendment is only about free speech. In reality, the First Amendment states that Congress shall make no law infringing upon the free practice of religion, okay, the freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right of the public to protest, and the right of the government to seek redress of their grievances with their government. That is the First Amendment. It's far more than just free speech or just freedom of the press. There are a number of issues that get addressed in the First Amendment, and I constantly stress that the First Amendment is the bedrock upon which all of our other rights are built. It is the foundation of our house. And it is the foundation of our house because if you can't use your voice to speak out, if you can't use your voice to advocate or to protest or to demand more of your government by seeking redress, then you cannot defend all of the other rights that follow. That's why it was first. That's why it's considered paramount. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on, what some of our concerns are with free speech, what you're here for, and really like what you're hoping to get out of tonight. That's going to be our introductions. I want everybody to say who you are when we come around. I'm just going to go down, up, and down again. So I'm going to pop down to Ian Carroll from Cancel This Clothing. And I cannot mute myself, so I'll do my best to quiet over here, guys.
It's a good chance to test if I'm still echoing right now. Am I echoing, guys?
Nope.
Cool.
Yeah. So I
might
swipe
have
up
to
on the
close
app
the
and then
app
come back.
Nope, it just did it.
I think you're echoing.
Cool. My headphones are charging right now, so hopefully that'll fix it. But I'm Ian from Cancel This Clothing Company, and you guys probably know me from things like journalism about conspiracy theories, journalism about the stock market, journalism about corporations controlling our world and oppressing our free speech. And I do a lot of free speeching on this app, and I'm like one or two strikes away from getting banned for free speeching a little too much sometimes. So free speech is near and dear to my heart in all of its forms, and it's kind of essential to my business model too.
All right. And James, we're going to pop down to you. Can you introduce yourself, tell everybody what you do here, and why you thought tonight was something you had to be a part of?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Glad to be here. Very honored to be part of this wonderful group. And yeah, as a citizen journalist, kind of what I do, I very much the same thing that Ian does. He does it probably a little bit better than I do, a little bit more. He's got the better stash. He's got some of the better graphics. But I do what I can. But the most important thing in this country is free speech, because without free speech, we don't have the ability to hold anybody in power accountable. There's a reason why free speech is the First Amendment, not the second, third, fourth. It's the first one. There's a reason why autocratic dictatorships, they don't allow free speech. There's a reason why they can do all kinds of stuff. Like in Singapore, you can have sex with prostitutes, you can drink all you want, but you don't have free speech. There's a reason why, because it's a threat to power. And pretty much the last thing I'll say here about free speech before we jump on, I know I'm getting into too much, but ever since the Constitution, the Bill of Rights was ratified, they've tried to take away free speech time and time again. And it's up to us to protect that right.
Thank you, James. We're going to pass over to Callie from Sparks of Joy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Callie, and I am the founder of Sparks of Joy Co. We are a small business that was founded here on TikTok, and 98% of my sales come because people find me here on TikTok. So the TikTok ban is super important to me and the livelihood of my small business. I've been to DC 3 different times over the last year and a half to talk with politicians and to stand at the Capitol to talk about this issue. So it is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm so grateful to have been able to stand beside so many of these creators on the screen in DC.
And up to Tara Lynn.
Hi, Wicked Witch of the West here. Some of you might know me from my property rights battle. In fact, that's how I got a following on TikTok. I came here to expose what the government was doing when they came to take my backyard unjustly, because members of my community wanted it, quite simply. Because of that, I was able to reach a settlement with the government and have hundreds of thousands of followers all over the globe. We now do what I call banging the drum, which is getting really loud on social media here, to advocate for others going through property rights issues all over the country. And so without a drum to bang, we wouldn't have any influence. We wouldn't be able to tap into the power of the people. So being able to speak freely in defense of our First Amendment right, and on platforms like this, where 170 million of us come together on things that we're passionate about, is something that I am deeply passionate about. So very honored to be here with each and every one of you in our little family circle that we've created, our 9-box here. And for everyone that's on the live, I hope you can stay for the entire duration of the time. Thank you for being here.
All right, we're going to come up to Lindsay.
Hey everyone, I'm a bit of a wild card. A lot of people know me from allowing my son to draw on the wall with crayons. I grew a very promising small business also here on TikTok. And I have a beautiful autism community. I have 2 autistic sons. I was diagnosed myself at 37. And this is so important to me for many reasons, more than just my small business, but also just being able to see real live news from people all over the world, hearing it as it's happening from the source. That's something that I just feel that we don't have on other apps, and I really want to protect that.
All right, we're going to cruise right next to you to Tony from Middle Road Sanity.
Hi, I'm Tony. I started this TikTok because I can't stand political division, and so I'm trying to lead what I'm calling the Mr. Rogers revolution, where we're just trying to be a little nicer to each other about some really heavy topics. I spent some time working at the community level on community revitalizations. I was a co-director of a chamber of commerce. So as much as I love federal, national level politics, I really love when people get down in the dirt in their local communities where they can see immediate change. It's the middle road for me because we all have a lot more in common than we think we do. And that's actually how I met Tiffany. She slipped into one of the lives and we agreed on that point. And now here we are. A few weeks ago, I was in the Capitol with her for the TikTok protest. That's how I met Wicked Witch and Sparks of Joy. And I just want to take this second to let everybody know that the people in these windows here are effing legendary. So this is an honor for the guy with only 30,000 followers. So thanks for having me, guys.
All right, we're going to head down to Dad Life Jason, who certainly needs no introduction, but we want to hear from him anyway because we love him.
I'm Dad Life Jason. Thanks for having me. My content is based on just the journey of our family going through foster care and into adoption, multi-ethnic, so many different dynamics in our family, and just sharing our journey with the world. And the reason why just being here and having this conversation is so important to me is because I'm in a place where people like me, their voices are marginalized, and a lot of the education that needs to go to so many people in my community is only found on TikTok. It's not found in mass. And so a lot of the social justice and a lot of the social change that benefited not just one aisle of the White House, or what did it say, one side of the aisle, there's benefit that has gone to multiple sides of the aisle because of TikTok and because of the awareness that we've spread there. And so going to Washington and learning how the big machine works makes it so much more important for us to participate as much as possible.
I'm just going to give you my favorite shout out. Being a foster parent is the hardest job in the world. I grew up in a foster household. I run the largest foster giving drive for children in the Mid-Atlantic every Christmas season. And so that's what drew me to Jason's content. It's very,
Awesome.
very near and dear to my heart.
Thank you.
So thank you, because it is literally the hardest job in the world. To love somebody you know you probably have to give away much sooner than you're ready to. It's the
Yeah.
hardest thing.
Plenty of broken hearts in the journey. Mine
Sorry,
has been
guys, I have a
shattered a
fire
billion
truck.
times, but they're worth it.
Yep, 100%. And they need amazing families like yours. So we need more content like yours, and to not have it here would be heartbreaking. All right, I'm going to pass down to Stephen. I don't know if I'm supposed to say Big Pepper if I'm saying it right, but I love your content, Stephen. So help me get it right and tell us about yourself and why this First Amendment Live is so important to you.
My apologies for being late. I had a late night last night. It is 8 a.m. for me abroad, so I don't generally sleep in very late, but obviously my body needed the rest that it took from me. So my name is Stephen. Tiffany, my username has no pronunciation. It's
Okay.
simply the letters BTYPEP, and it's an acronym I created for beautiful people.
I love it.
So call me what you will. Hello, everybody. I, just like all of the other creators in this town hall, without reiterating the same thing that everybody else has said, they've already said it for me. My First Amendment right, your First Amendment right, our First Amendment right is my number one priority in protecting the app, and why I'm here today. So
for everybody, we still have a couple creators now. Some of you are better at doing big lives than I am. How many creators can we have up at a time, for those of you that do multi-guest regularly?
We have reached maximum Brady Bunch at this point.
We have reached maximum Brady Bunch. Okay.
I like
We
that.
also have Jennifer Gay, who is she goes by Vegas Starfish. She has about 7 million followers, and she is a spectacular creator that lifts up small businesses all over the Southwest with a particular focus on Las Vegas, my hometown. She's absolutely spectacular, and she'll be bouncing in and out, but she's also at her son's kindergarten graduation tonight. So she's making time for us, and she's really made this a priority, even though she's not in here with us right this minute. She'll be bouncing back in with us shortly. And so we'll take turns bouncing in and out of the box to talk about some issues. What we're going to start off with tonight is we're going to go through leading up to Mr. Kennedy's appearance, which we expect to be sometime between 40 minutes from now and 70 minutes from now. We have about 2 hours available, and the earlier his travel ends, because he was actually on a plane with me when some of you were on the earlier live when we were doing our test run. He was actually on a plane living into me. But we are going to lay the foundation. We're going to talk about what the First Amendment means to us. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the infringements we're seeing and the risks we're seeing in the TikTok ban. We're also going to talk about some of the litigation that's taking place and things, meaningful things each of you can do. And, maybe some things that you think maybe aren't meaningful. For anyone that's just joining, because we've had our numbers go up a lot in the last few minutes, this is the first ever TikTok Town Hall where we are hosting a panel of amazing creators to talk about a serious issue tonight focused on censorship and the First Amendment, particularly with some discussion about the TikTok ban. And after our conversation, we will have presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Joining us. We're looking forward to have additional candidates and politicians and other just amazing people that contribute to our society on later. The reason that we are focused on having Mr. Kennedy on tonight is specifically because he's been the most successful attorney at suing the federal government. He's sued every major agency on behalf of things that have happened to families all across America. He's sued the EPA. He has sued the FDA. He's sued for toxins in food. He's sued over chemicals in agriculture that were making kids get lymphoma. And just recently, last year, he successfully sued the Biden administration and the Department of Justice for their role in forcefully censoring free speech on social media apps. So because of that, we've chosen him to be the candidate tonight that comes on. He's got an active lawsuit right now against Meta and the federal government for conspiring to censor and also for engaging in election interference through their algorithmic manipulation of our content during the last election. And then he's also promised to take up a lawsuit on behalf of TikTok users regarding First Amendment violations and the TikTok ban. So there's really nobody better suited to come on and talk about these free speech issues. Now, I'm also going to caution everybody, if you are not familiar with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's going to speak slowly. He has a neurological condition called dysphonia. That is a neurological condition that causes your voice box to spasm and quake. He will probably say the second he gets here that nobody hates the sound of his voice more than him, but he has a lot of information that I think is really amazing on these topics, and that's why he's here tonight. And our creators are not in order, but there's an even split here between a few creators that really like Bobby Kennedy, a few creators that really don't like Bobby Kennedy, and a few that are completely undecided on the issue, but all of us are united in our belief that our First Amendment rights are being infringed on and they must be protected. And so we've all come together, set all of those political beliefs aside, because we all believe that there are things that unite us regardless of what the mainstream media and all of these billionaires tell us we're supposed to believe about one another. We believe we have more in common than we have different. And that's why we're here. All right. So the first topic I want to bring up is I want to talk a little bit about what, for those of you that are monetized and rely on TikTok for your paying your bills and providing for your business and your family, how the TikTok ban would impact you and your families and your ability to just provide generally, and whether or not you feel hopeful right now about the possibilities based on what you already know, or whether or not you have serious concerns. I know we have several people that qualify here. I believe that Callie, Lindsay, there's a lot of people on here. Who would like to talk about that first? Go for it, Stephen. Perfect.
So for me personally, the impact would be the reach that I have, not necessarily the monetizing directly by TikTok, but it's the monetizing that I receive through the avenue of TikTok, because TikTok provides me with my largest platform. So it would be the brand deals that I receive for posting on TikTok. In addition to that, with projects that I have in my pipeline, it would most definitely be on and with TikTok and TikTok shop directly, because in order to shop on TikTok, we need TikTok to shop. So with a lot of projects, my current project overseas right now, that would obviously cancel the project that I'm working on right now overseas if TikTok was to be gone. I'm blessed enough, and I'm sure many others are, that I do have a dual income household of both me and my husband. However, I do make more through social media than my husband does in his healthcare job. And it would take an impact. However, I have been, I'm financially responsible. I'm prepared for emergency. But at the same time, it's a huge revenue source, and it's because I have the platform of TikTok. The other platforms are not providing me the growth, the exposure, or the opportunities that TikTok has. So
Thank you so much. Like, and everyone in here monetizes a little bit different, so it's really helpful because I don't understand as much about that type of monetization. So that everyone knows, we're gonna be rotating some of the guests down and up as we're bringing up different topics. Vegas Starfish does have some perspectives on this, so I'm gonna drop a couple of our creators down that are not monetized and bring them back up in just a couple minutes. Tony, can you help me with that? Because I know you're moderating. Can you drop down for me? And I'm gonna bring Jen up as well. Callie, can you tell us a little bit about what it means for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So for my business, I started it in the midst of the pandemic. I started my TikTok and my business on the same day. So both of them have grown together. Through that, we've gained a following of 114,000 people in our little community, and that accounts for 98% of my sales for my business. I sell pre-stamped greeting cards and personalized gifts, and that is something that usually would not go viral or do well in this economy. Like most people are not going to stores to buy greeting cards anymore. And so through it, we've been able to connect with our customers and be able to find new people through the unique algorithm that TikTok offers. If we were to lose TikTok, if it were to go away, my business would probably have to force to shut down. And that is because we've tried building presences on other platforms. It's not the same. The way that the TikTok algorithm works, because it shows you to people that are interested in your content versus the people that you choose to follow, that allows small businesses like mine to get out there and to connect with people all over the world. And so it would be pretty detrimental. I've been able to hire part-time employees. I've been able, through TikTok Shop, we had an incredible month back in August. We sold $30,000 worth of products in just 9 days. And that helped me to employ 15 people part-time for several weeks. And none of that would have happened without TikTok and without TikTok Shop. So
Incredible.
it was absolutely insane. It was beyond my wildest dreams. But yeah, it's not for lack of trying on other platforms. I actually am a certified social media strategist with the National Institute for Social Media. I serve on their board. I've managed social for brands for the last 8 years. We've tried everything, but TikTok is so unique and it offers such a unique algorithm in the way that the For You page works. That is why my business has been successful here and not on other platforms.
Oh my gosh. So Jason, I don't know how your monetization works, but I was going to ask, what does TikTok mean for your family? I mean, you have a unique family situation, and consistency of like revenue and revenue streams has to be really important.
Yeah, it is very important. When I first joined TikTok, I was a teacher's aide in for the special education department in our town here, and and that was a very meager salary of $12,000 a year. Um, we had to make magic happen just to survive, but we were happy, and in that time, that's when I really developed the messaging to continue to speak hope, even if we didn't have the best things, if we didn't have the newest things, just to speak hope to the connection that we have with one another. And when TikTok started really taking off, um, I was doing live streams and playing my talk box, and people were gifting like crazy. I'm like, what is this? And then at the end of the live stream, I was like, holy crap, it's money. Yeah, and that changed everything. Like that really changed everything. It changed the perspective that I had with social media of that is just a silly thing. It's just a silly hobby. It became something that I can really identify or connect with so many different people that don't have a voice. And the thing that it's done, it's changed my life. We've been able to do a lot of brand deals that align with our family. That align. We were able to work with the Dave Thomas Foundation, and you know that they're big advocates for foster care. We've worked with them quite a few times. We've done just numerous things. The Cancer American Cancer Society has done stuff with us for branding, and it's been so good to have a regular guy who's not a supermodel, who's not been in movies or TV, to be just in the middle of America and have my voice matter so enough that brands are like, hey, I like this person. Because why shouldn't we get to ascribe our face and ascribe our voice and our values to the brands that we love? And why shouldn't they care about what we have to say? It shouldn't all be A-list actors that are in blockbuster movies. It's changed the paradigm of what branding is, and what the market wants to hear from. Like, we want to hear from people that live the life that we live. And it's changed our lives and changed the lives of so many in our community, because we've gone on to be able to support kids going to camp, to our school, when our teams are going out to do, whether it's archery or uh, the different soccer sports, different things. We've been able to go ahead and say, hey, what do you guys need, and been able to support them. And I've never been in that position in my life. And so to be able to do that and take care of people anonymously, or when I have to announce that I'm doing it, just to be able to do that, that's all because of TikTok. I was a person in the middle of nowhere. Um, no planes land here unless they're military. And all of a sudden, I don't even know how many followers I have now, but quite a lot. And it's because I'm espousing a message that most Americans can espouse to, like love, family, connection, and the things that bring us together. And that value system is something that's been able to have because of TikTok.
Right. I think
It's all
Jenny's
good.
coming up. Jen, you've got a little bit of feedback.
Okay.
We might need to just mute. What do we need to do when there's feedback, guys? Is it a headset thing or a car thing? I think she's in her car outside her son's graduation, so we're
The
gonna make it
Bluetooth.
work. Jen, just so you know where we are in the live right now, we're talking specifically to people that are monetized and people that understand the impact a loss of TikTok has on small businesses. And I feel like you've got probably a lot of perspective on that, given your entire platform is on lifting up small businesses and you have a monetized account. What does the TikTok ban mean if TikTok suddenly disappears for you and the small businesses you support? You're gonna have to unmute again. There we go.
Thanks. So sorry about all the trouble. It would effectively put many businesses out of business. Vegas, in particular, is so concentrated on the options that the only way a small business can shine is if they develop a social platform or get attention shown to them. And unfortunately, most of these small businesses don't have a marketing budget to hire social media managers and build followers organically, nor do they have the time. Restaurants run on razor thin margins. And if it wasn't for TikTok, there's so many that wouldn't be in business right now. And I cannot imagine what it would be like if it were to cease to exist.
You know, one of the things. I'm really. Got it. Okay, I got it. All right, so one of the things, I just turned your microphone off. I'll turn it right back on in just a sec. One of the things that I've talked about on the news a lot in the last week, and I'm going to be honest, I had a couple news broadcasters that were very unhappy with my answer on this issue. I think when broadcasters bring on TikTok creators, they all expect us to be like ditzy and swallowing Tide Pods or something. But the reality is that when we're educated, we've done our research, we know our economic facts, and we have the things we need to talk about ready to go. Sometimes they're a little unhappy, I think, with that outcome. I was on ABC News Australia on a really long interview, almost 15 minutes. It was the middle of the night. It was after we'd been out in the sun all day at the Capitol. And she asked me why we couldn't just recreate TikTok for businesses on other platforms. And I don't know how it is in Australia, but I can tell you how it is in America. And the reality is that in America, Google's YouTube, Google itself, and Facebook, 99% of their income comes from ad revenue. No small business has a chance of going viral in those environments or building an organically grown successful audience, especially because recent changes to their algorithm have begun to suppress you unless you're paying for boosts. And they just announced this week, Meta announced a new verified business program that says you're not even going to get your content shown to your own followers, the people that have chosen you. They won't see your content unless you're paying a minimum of $15 a month and as much as $350 a month, not for your ads, just to have your regular, hey kids, we're having a snow day, class is canceled post to even be visible. And as long as they've found increasing ways to create barriers to entry for small businesses to compete against these big monopolies that can spend any amount of money to be seen and be heard, then they're contributing to the problem. And that's the thing I see that is so special about TikTok, that it's not available elsewhere for small businesses. Small businesses go viral on here every day. Cali is proof that small businesses go viral on here every day. And the other platforms are making it almost impossible to even be seen, let alone go viral or grow an organic audience. I know we've just talked about small businesses for quite a bit, but I do have a bunch I want to cover before Mr. Kennedy comes on so that everybody has a solid primer. I'd like to shift a little bit. I'd like to talk to Ian if we can, and James, and anyone else that has something to say about this. I'm sure also Tara Lynn has something on this, but I'd really like to know about what you guys have seen in censorship and how people are perceiving the TikTok ban. You guys' comment feeds are filled with educated folks. Ian, you have a lot of conspiracy theorists in yours that are doing, and conspiracy theories a lot of times are unproven facts, right? We figured that out very recently. I think last year they told us aliens were real. We were all too busy, being in our 57th life-changing historic event to notice. But how are people talking about what they believe is causing the TikTok ban? Because I don't think most of us think it's a matter of national security. I think a lot of us believe that there are dollars in play. I want to use careful language because this is not listed as an 18 and over live, and I don't want to get us bananas. So be careful with your language, but what are people saying, and what are your thoughts on where this actually came from?
I think that we all kind of know where the free speech censorship, where the goal of the TikTok ban came from. And the part that I think is the most insidious about the TikTok ban is the chilling effect that threatening TikTok as a foreign actor of China, as though they needed to clean up their act, threatening them for the last year or two to ban them, has caused TikTok to get really, really happy with their ban hammer and their censorship algorithms, because TikTok is now worried that they're going to get banned for not being pro-America enough. And so the tragic irony is that now TikTok, and so I do a lot of journalism about the CIA, a lot of journalism criticizing our government and the missteps of our government, and that's 100% my right as a citizen of this country. That's the whole point of the press, is to hold our government to account. There's no other reason to have a press, and especially a free press, as is laid out in our Constitution. And so the tragic irony is that they're accusing TikTok of being this Chinese censorship app that's going to steal our data and send it to China. And by threatening them with that, then TikTok gets really happy about their ban hammer and their censorship, and they're actually censoring the content that's criticizing the American government, not the Chinese government. And so I've purposely posted content extremely critical of the Chinese government just to show that it doesn't get banned and censored, because they're not worried about, they would actually, I would assume, just my speculation, but I would assume that TikTok would love to have more anti-China content so that they could say look, we don't worry about, but instead what they're doing is they're censoring all of the content that is talking about CIA operations, or how our government has crossed the line, or things that we should have every right to talk about. And the irony is that the app being accused of being Chinese is the one censoring it, Whereas all the apps owned by Americans don't censor me nearly as much because they're not being threatened with being banned. So there's this funny chilling effect that moves into our speech and causes me to censor what I even talk about on TikTok in a way that's directly contrary to their narrative about it being a Chinese problem as opposed to like just a free speech problem.
And James, you do investigative journalism, right? A lot of people have been talking recently about the fact that it came out in a whistleblower report last year that META, I don't know if we can say that word too loud on here, was caught spending $31 million on what is widely accepted as a far right lobbying group that specializes in catering to and convincing right-leaning politicians to support all types of legislation. And in this case, from what we read, they said that they were spending $31 million and then throwing money at the politicians to convince Americans and politicians that this was an unsafe place for children.
Yeah, that
Right. So, like, I know you've been doing a lot of research and journalism on all of the outside factors contributing to this. What have you found?
there's a number, I think, to push this ban through, there's a number of different things that come together. One of them is what you mentioned with the META group, making it so that TikTok, or making the point that TikTok is somehow uniquely dangerous when it's probably equally bad. I'm one of those people who feel like, hey, social media is probably bad in terms of the mental health for kids, but that's not unique to TikTok. But they've somehow pinned it on TikTok. And we have one of my former professors, I think some of you might know him, Jonathan Haidt. He went on Joe Rogan. He talked about how uniquely dangerous TikTok was. And a lot of this is propaganda. You have presidential candidates like Nikki Haley talking about how anti-Semitic TikTok is, and it's uniquely really, really bad. And so that's one angle that you have. So that's one that's been around for a while, I think, for a few years, but that ban didn't happen. The other thing that we found, I think Ian maybe alluded to this, but there's another group of people who also don't like what users on TikTok are talking about, and that has to do with the stuff that's going on in Gaza, Israel. I'm not sure is that okay to say here? Can I say that?
I say watermelon because I don't want to
Watermelon.
risk it. So I say
Yes.
watermelon. I know we
Yes.
all have alternative words we use for things. I hate that it's not a dirty word, and we should.
And this is ironic that we're talking about First Amendment.
Effect again.
It's crazy. This is the point that Ian was making. We're talking about saving TikTok, and TikTok is one of the most censored apps of all the social media platforms. But there was significant money that was being poured in. I have entire videos digging into how the bill was written by, I guess, anti-watermelon or pro-Israel groups that are writing the app. There's immense amounts of money being poured into Congress. If you guys don't know the book, Israel Lobby, written by these two professors at the University of Chicago, it talks about how specifically, if they want a particular bill to pass, you have 300 congressmen that are going to vote for it. They have 70 senators minimum in their pockets. And these are the guys that they call on. And so that's why this app or this ban can go through so quickly. It's the confluence of all of these things that are happening. Now, do I think in terms of national security, China wouldn't take this data? I think China would definitely take this data, but they're taking data from every single app. So that's not really the primary issue. I am for protection of Americans, and I want what they should be doing is a broad federal privacy bill that protects the data of all of the users, not just cherry picking and saying, hey, we need to ban this particular app. Not even banning. This is almost an anti-American thing to say, hey, you've built up this great app, and now we're going to take it from you. You must sell it to an American company. I mean, if you flip that for any other situation, it would make no sense. And I get the pushback I've talked to some people, and they say, well, you wouldn't want in 1930s Germany, the BBC to be owned by, the guy. And I said, well, as an American, I'm not, for Chinese policy. So in this situation, the right analogy is to say, hey, what's actually going on is China, because of the anti-competitive practices that have been going on in the U.S. with social media companies, have destroyed or or bot or suppress any other social media company that's been nascent, that's been up and coming. They kill all of them. And now you have this app that is coming in and that Americans love to use. So now that the right analogy is, oh, what if in 1930 Germany came out with a media company that was so popular amongst the British that they prefer that over the BBC? Now that's the right question that we have to deal with. And for me, it's all about coming back. Okay, what is the American thing to do? The American thing to do should not be to adopt, anti-competitive practices, autocratic things to suppress. It's to compete. That's all we're all about. If you want to compete with TikTok, build something that we want to use. Because for us, it's all about, for me personally, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I just like to get information out there. I like to interact with people. So whatever the best means of doing that is, I will gladly try it out. So it's not, so for me, it's all about actually practicing what you preach. That's more or less. So there's a lot of things that are happening in the background money-wise why this is happening, and we can talk about that maybe a different time in a different platform. So we don't get in trouble with this particular stream, but that's a lot of things that I've been looking at in the last couple of months.
I consider myself a Brandeisian when it comes to free speech. I don't know if anybody knows who Walter Brandeis is. Walter Brandeis was a Supreme Court justice for quite a while, and he authored a very important Supreme Court decision that was landmark and is still governing law today in 1927 that said whenever there is an instance of undesirable speech, and undesirable speech could be anything because he described it as an ever-moving target, right? And that is true today. There are words that are being said today that we would have thought were not appropriate a while ago, and there are words that we said a while ago very freely that today we would never, right? It's an ever-moving target. And he said that whenever undesirable speech arises, whether it's lies, whether it's propaganda, whether it is hateful, whether it is ugly, whether it is even violent, he said the answer is never, ever censorship. It is only more speech, and that the more desirable speech would drown out the speech that was not desirable. The accurate speech, the truthful speech would drown out the lies, that the loving speech and that the supportive speech would drown out the hate, and that it was never to censor. In America, we didn't have a First Amendment if it ever became to censor, that it was always supposed to be to encourage more speech, never to censor the speech. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I know we have a lot of comments coming up in here, and we have a bunch of people that don't know what we're here for. There's a lot of people going, how did all of these creators end up in a box together? So very, very quickly, this is our first ever TikTok town hall where we are getting together to democratize democracy. We are having a conversation about the First Amendment, about the TikTok ban, about recent censorship, and especially about the suppression also of the protesters on college campuses, which we have seen are being censored far more on other apps than they have been on here. I do think that on here, we've seen a lot more of news around the world first person than we're able to access on other apps, even with increased censorship in here, which I think is super essential. And also, I think a big motivator for why the people that try to control us are very unhappy with our presence here. And I mean, there's a lot of folks in here that don't know, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is coming on in the next 15 to 30 minutes. He'll be joining us. That's because we've invited him on as a guest, because he has successfully sued the federal government repeatedly over the last several years. He has sued the FDA, the EPA, the DOJ, the Biden administration, and he keeps winning and winning and winning and winning. He has sued to get chemicals out of our food, to get chemicals out of our agriculture. He has sued, most recently, he sued the DOJ and the Biden administration over their direct participation in the mandated censorship of social media speech over the last several years, and won. And right now he is suing Meta and the government for participating in suppression of speech during the last election and admitting so in government hearings. And so he's coming on to speak on those issues and our possibilities litigation-wise, along with a bunch of other issues. So he'll be here in just a little bit, but until then, we're gonna keep chatting. Now, I want to, if I can, I'm going to, I think I've got to choose who to drop down and how to bring Tony up. I want to talk about people that are building communities. All of you have communities, but some communities are more engaged and some are more from afar, right? So like Steven, your community is engaged. They are communicating with you all day, every day. Tara, your community loves a challenge. They like you to tell them to do something and they go grab their drums and they scream from the rooftops. Tony, Middle Road Sanity, is doing the exact same thing. Callie, is it okay if I drop you down for a couple minutes and I bring you right back up? Awesome. I don't know how to drop you down. Do you know how to drop you down? She's got it.
Tony is an especially relevant person. He's really good at building a tight knit and unified community. It's really cool. I met Tony early on in my journey, and I'm so glad I did.
All right, so Tony, I'm going to bring you up, but I want to talk about, I'm going to go to Tara first, about how building a community here is different from building communities elsewhere. Because one of the things that I noticed in Capitol Hill is everyone wanted to say that we were ending up a society that was like this and that we weren't listening to the type of things, we weren't listening to the speech they were giving us. We just heard Hillary Clinton say we were on here learning propaganda instead of what the mainstream media told us to hear, which was the most asinine speech ever uttered on television, right? But we know we've built communities in here. When I was on the news 2 weeks ago, I said, I've built community here that I've never achieved anywhere else in bringing people together. We're not dividing on here. The other apps we know divided us, but in here, at least for a lot of people in these boxes, we're building bridges. So Tara, what's it been like for you and your community? And then I'm gonna go to Stephen and then Tony and Ian, I think. What's it been like for you?
Yeah, I found that when you share information with people in a compelling way that's broken down, and you're not using 14-letter words and you keep it really simple, you can reach a very wide audience. And when it comes to the government, there's no entity that's better than getting the American people to cheer, literally cheer, for things that erode and roll back our constitutional rights. That happened in my case, where neighbors were cheering for the government to take my land because they were going to benefit from that. And when I was able to share the facts and lay out the situation, which was a very complicated situation in multiple parts on TikTok, people got invested, right? We love story as humans. So once people were invested, then it was like, tell me more, right? They had questions. And then when it was like, hey, I actually need your help, banging the drum and writing the commissioners and showing up at town halls and making phone calls, people naturally, I believe, are good. And people are also purpose driven. And they want to help. They want to have a sense of community. They want to feel like they made a difference. And I feel like so often we fall into apathy and indifference because we feel like what we do doesn't matter. And the following that I've built here, all my besties, I love you guys, we have proven, we are battle tested, you guys. We have proven time and time again that whether it's the government here in Colorado or the government in San Antonio or the Maine Zoning Association in Reno, Nevada, or the Zoning Association in Arizona, that we are effective when we come together. And I think that helps perpetuate investment. It's like, this isn't just, a one-way experience that we have here and a community that we've built. It's tangible, it's real, we make a difference. And I think that helps to, keep that momentum building and keep people invested. But it is somewhat of a magic trick because you have to start with the belief that what you're saying and what you're sharing matters.
You have literally helped to achieve huge outcomes for people that were up against insurmountable financial opponents. You've done a lot of what I do on here, right? Like I've been trying to fight private equity companies in court. It feels like an insurmountable task. And when you can pool resources, it may not balance the scales of justice, certainly, but it stops you from feeling like you're completely outgunned, outmatched. And it also stops you from feeling so alone in your journey. I know that personally. And before I even knew Carolyn, before I even met her, the first or second time we called, I just cried on the phone with her. I was like, nobody else understands. Nobody else understands. They don't know what we're going through. And then she cried and she's like, you're right. No one understands. Nobody gets how lonely this path is. But through here, we are less lonely and we are less alone and we are more supported. Stephen, I'm going to be so honest. Before I went to DC, I'd never seen your content. You'd never come up in my FYP. And when I first entered your lives, I realized all of your followers talk to each other. They know everything that's going on. They have built the most amazing, friendly, supportive community. I've seen people in your life saying, hey, if you need some support, just shoot me a DM. And there's always 2,000, 3,000 people and they are up to date. They know what's going on. You're so inspiring to them. You guys are always really reassuring to one another. Like, what has TikTok meant to building the kind of community you have? Because it's not a divisive place. Nobody's in your comment section fighting with each other. They are building each other up.
Yeah, and that is one of the best things that I love about TikTok is the algorithm is always changing and it's always showing you new discoveries of content creators based on your interests. So obviously, the more you engage with the creator, the more the FYP is going to feed you the content that you previously engaged with or topics related to that content. And same with you. I had never seen you before. You came up on my FYP. I watched the video in depth. I was like, this woman is highly intelligent, and I appreciate that. I went and spammed your page. I left you a comment saying, girl, you earned a follow. Like when I say you earned a follow, you earned it through your intelligent conversations and through your video sharing. So,
Like, I'm getting red. I got red.
For me, my platform and the way that I engage with my audience is we've grown together. We've been on this journey together. And I have always prided myself on being a content creator that wants to share and engage with my audience as much as possible and allow them to be as accessible to me as they can. As creators grow and venture out into larger adventures that the platform has provided, they become less accessible. Regardless of my successes on and off the app, I have remained accessible so that my audience feels that genuine connection with me and I have it with them, because ultimately we are a community. We're a family of people that are visiting each other each day, checking in with each other, sending messages on the app or other apps. Some of us having outside telephone conversations, established friendships. We're ultimately a community, and I want the access to my audience as much as my audience wants the access to me, because then it makes our community feel more inclusive. So I've prided myself on making sure that my audience feels like they have access to me. So
Absolutely working, because in your comment section, you can tell. Your comments are like every comments, and not just on like your videos, on your lives too. Your comments are moving fast and furious, but there's as many replies in your comments that are supportive as there are regular comments. They are really talking to each other, which is amazing. And that's one of my favorite things. I'm gonna go to Tony. And this is one where there's big communities. I'm gonna go to Tony and then Jen, because Jen I know is gonna have to go see her son's graduation at some point. I want to keep getting her. But Tony, and then I want to talk to Jen also about the fact that she's built a community that was originally built on one city. So she has a geographic thing she's built here, but also it's expanded beyond there. So Tony, tell us, when you see TikTok, why you believe, or I don't want to tell you why you believe it's bringing us together and not apart if that's not what you think, but I think that's what you think. So tell us what it means to you for community building.
How do I start? I was a political science major. I'm from Ohio, and as much as Ohio can be the butt end of like literally every joke and every movie you've ever seen, we're a swing state, and all eyes are on us every single election year, and that's for a reason. We have a little bit of everything. We have someone from every camp that you can think of, and being someone who was raised by very right-leaning people, and then my journey as a creative musician led me around actors, Broadway people, musicians, painters, so a lot of left and right. And I have a deep love and appreciation for people who claim to be on either side of those. And feeling like I was stuck in the middle, it's a very lonely place. And anybody who claims to be a middle of the road person, leave a 1 in the chat, because I know you know what that feels like. It's a lonely place. And so coming here onto TikTok and trying to soothe that division, it helped me feel far less alone than I did before, because so many people were coming out of the woodwork, not only from here in the United States, but from around the world, who were like, I'm totally with you. There's so much more that we have in common than these things that divide us. And those things that divide us tend to be very tenuous, very important to people, and they are a big deal. But if we only focus on that, then the wounds only get deeper, and that's not helping. And so this journey of mine has been really illuminating, because the proof is in the pudding. If you speak to people on their level and you're willing to meet them where they are and speak a language they can understand, they will hear you and they'll inch a little bit closer to you and they'll start to perk their ears. And that's where the real healing comes in. And I will also take this opportunity to say that, especially for Ian and Tiffany, I love all of you, and James too. I found you later in my TikTok journey, but I studied this stuff for so long, and I just wanted so desperately to find people who had the details of what I assumed was going on, because I'm more of a philosophy guy, I'm more of a humanist kind of guy. And then in comes Ian and in comes Tiffany, and they got the facts, and they just blew my mind and humbled the hell out of me, previously, who thought he knew something about politics and the world, right? And so this community here has been immensely inspiring and humbling, and I don't see that happening on my Facebook or my Instagram. It just didn't happen like that, and the proof is here. You know, TikTok was the place that we were able to find one another and share information, share facts, knowledge, uncomfortable truths, and yes, even make some friends along the way.
Yes. And I've got to be honest, like, I think Tony was the first person I met in person from TikTok. And I think we were both nervous. Like, we decided to go to a water park with our kids.
It's true.
And I was like a little nervous. I'm like, serial killer, maybe? Like, he's really cool online.
You never know.
And then, like, I was like, he was really cool online. I hope it's okay. The most natural thing in the world. Like, literally, I was like, walking, I was like, what's that, bud? He's like, hey, buddy. And we spent the whole day just hanging out like we'd hung out for a million times before. Hold on, I have, I'm going to step out of frame. Tony, can you take it to Jen? RFK's calling me.
Isn't that
Before you take it to Jen, Tony,
yes?
before you take it to Jen, can I ask everybody to share this live with 5 to 10 different people? Everybody
Guys?
tap this
Yeah.
screen. Let's get to 200,000 likes really quick. There's 1.6 thousand of you guys in here. With RFK joining us shortly, we
He's
want
joining
to
us right now.
to the FYP. So,
Okay.
and make sure you are asking engaging questions that you want answered.
So everybody, for all of my creators, I need everyone to start dropping down. What's going to happen right now is we're going to bring Mr. Kennedy in. I'm not sure what he wants me to call him tonight. He may ask me to call him Bobby. He may ask me to call him Mr. Kennedy. I'm going to do my best to be respectful of what he asks for. The creators in here found their questions for tonight a variety of ways. Most of them went to their audiences. We're going to bring Mr. Kennedy up into the only other box, and then one by one, we'll bring creators up to ask their questions. After Mr. Kennedy is done, we will come back and complete our creator chat, okay? We still have a bunch to go there. We're just going to get him in here. So I need everybody that's in the boxes to drop into the comments. Please don't leave. And like he said, keep tapping and doing all of those things, and we're going to get folks in here to participate in this conversation. All right? Everybody drop
Down,
down.
Tiffany.
What was that, Ian?
How do I drop down?
I've
never been in a multi before.
I can drop you down, I think. Hold on.
Same question. I have no idea how to drop down.
Tony, help me. Okay. You're just removing them from the box, not the thing, right? Okay, perfect. All right, I'm going to bring Mr. Kennedy up. All right, welcome. I'm not sure if I have Scott or Mr. Kennedy right now, but if I'm going to try my best to get your camera to turn on. I'm going to try to send a request for it. If you tap your screen that Mr. Kennedy's little picture is in, you can tap the camera and then click accept, and it should allow you to turn your camera on for everybody. For those of you down in the audience, tonight we, as a large group of creators here on TikTok, have the humbling experience of having Mr. Kennedy come on tonight to talk to us about the First Amendment. I think it might be his first TikTok live ever. We are incredibly humbled to have him here. And I hope you guys enjoy the next little bit while we ask some important questions and spend some time with a presidential candidate that actually was willing to come down and speak to the people without the filter of the mainstream media, just to come talk to regular everyday people with questions that real people need answered. I don't know if you want me to call you Bobby or Mr. Kennedy tonight. What would you prefer?
You can call me Bobby.
Okay. All right. For anyone that's new here, I got to meet Bobby back in November. He had me in to record an episode of his podcast. It was supposed to be a kitchen table talk, and then we kept talking, and it got longer and longer. And so I got to meet him in person. That aired on February 7th. And I don't know if you've seen what we've covered tonight so far, Bobby, but we are talking about the First Amendment. We are talking about the TikTok ban and censorship, and just really kind of what's happening in America and some of our fears and some of the risks that have to do with that. I don't know if you'd like to start by telling us a little bit about what your perspectives are on the First Amendment, maybe to just give us some groundwork, and then we'll start bringing creators up one at a time to ask you their questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, thanks. And I apologize for the quality of this video. My plane came in late to Tampa, and so I'm driving right now across north central Florida, and I'm in a car, so I apologize to everybody. I was hoping to be in a hotel by now, but this is what they're trying to do in Congress is it's perverse, it's twisted, it clearly violates the First Amendment. It also violates the Fifth Amendment, which protects property rights. You can't just go take away somebody's property in this country without due process and just compensation. And it's about, we've seen this this impulse by government, particularly over the last 3 years since the COVID epidemic, to openly censor speech of Americans. And a lot of this stuff, I'm on TikTok. I have an account on TikTok. It's important for me to be able to communicate to people from TikTok. There's a lot of content in TikTok that I disagree with, but that's what democracy is about. Hamilton, Madison, and Adams said that they put the guarantee of free expression in the First Amendment because all of the other rights depend on it. If you have a government that can censor its critics or control what the public hears or learns, control the sources of their information, that government has license for any atrocity. And we saw in 2020, at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, when the government started censoring speech for the first time, pressuring. We now know from the Twitter files, from my lawsuit against the Biden administration, which is now up to the Supreme Court, Kennedy versus Biden and Murphy versus Biden, which is a lawsuit by the Missouri Attorney General and the Louisiana Attorney Generals that my organization and me personally have worked very hard on that lawsuit. We know now that the White House, 37 hours after President Biden took office, the White House was pressuring Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google, and Twitter to censor speech and threatening those platforms that if they did not cooperate, if they did not begin censoring President Biden's critics, that the Biden administration was going to bring antitrust suits against them and was going to end their Section 230 immunity. And in conformance and reaction to those threats, which they knew were wrong, Facebook and Twitter opened up portals for the FBI that were then used by the CIA, by CISA, by NIH, by the IRS, and by other administrative agencies and regulatory agencies and enforcement agencies to censor this. Anybody who tells you that TikTok is the villain because the Chinese government is going to come in and spy on us, well, guess what? All of those, the information, your personal information, your personal business is being scraped on all of those websites. Twitter's doing it, less so now with Elon there. Facebook, Meta is doing it outrageously in an area much, much worse in a way that's much worse than anything that's happening on TikTok, much, much grander scale. YouTube is doing it, Google's doing it, and they have intelligence agencies, including the CIA, the Five Eyes agencies, and now have access to that data. And they're scraping the data, and they're using it to control our realities, our perceptions of realities, to control the content that we see on social media that Americans have access to. I would say this: there is no exception for national security in the United States Constitution. The United States Constitution was written for hard times. And in fact, I'll tell you a story. During the Civil War, there were agent provocateurs being sent from the Confederate states up into the northern states to incite draft riots. And it was absolutely demoralizing the North, because in New York and other cities, there were these riots against the war going on, and they were being incited by Confederates who were coming up for that purpose. Well, Abraham Lincoln knew who those men were, and he ordered them arrested, and he ordered the habeas corpus suspended for national security reasons. That we really had national security reasons at that point. 659,000 Americans died. It's the equivalent of 7.2 million today. We are the existence, the future existence of our nation was at stake, and we were being torn asunder. And yet, the Supreme Court, Justice Taney, wrote an opinion saying you can't do it. It doesn't matter if the life of the nation is at stake. It doesn't matter that hundreds of thousands of people are being killed. He said freedom of speech is more important right than anything else, and you can't trample it. You can't temper it. The Constitution was written by hard times, for hard times, not for easy times. The Constitution was written not to protect the speech that everybody agrees with. It was written to protect the speech that is inconvenient, that nobody agrees with, that nobody wants to hear. Speech from people who are your enemies, speech from in 1978, there were many liberals who went and supported the right of the Ku Klux Klan to walk through Skokie, Illinois, which the American Civil Liberties Union defended them. Everybody was appalled by what the Ku Klux Klan was saying. But people thought, if we're Americans, we need to be able to die for their right to say it, even if it's repulsive to us. And that's what freedom of speech is. We all know, I grew up reading Robert Heinlein and Aldous Huxley and Alexander Solzhenitsyn and all of these extraordinary novelists and writers who were writing about a dystopian future. And in every case, the dystopian future begins with restrictions on speech. It's the beginning it's the first step on the slippery slope toward totalitarianism. And there's never been a time in history when we look back and we say that the guys who were censoring speech were the good guys. They're always the bad guys, and they're the bad guys today. Listen, they banned RT TV, which is Russian language. They're trying to ban Al Jazeera. I am offended by that. I want to hear what the Russians think about us. I want to hear what Al Jazeera thinks about Israel. I have my own feelings about Israel, and Al Jazeera is going to disagree with me, but I want to hear what they're saying. It's important. Democracy is about trusting the demos, the people, if we have a free flow of information, that the policies and the ideas that are annealed in the furnace of debate will rise up and will triumph in that marketplace of ideas. And that is the advantage that democracy has on any other system of government. I'll say one other thing, because this isn't just about free speech. And it's using this threat of national security that the Chinese are, secretly infiltrating the minds of our children. So, We have the CIA doing the same thing on all of these American on Meta and YouTube. We're being manipulated. We got rid of the Smith-Mundt Act, which prohibited the CIA from propagandizing the American people. And in 2014, President Obama got rid of those prohibitions. So every day we have our intelligence agencies manipulating us. And, the answer to that is not to get rid of all the communications, it's to get them out of that business. But by the way, I spent a lot of years litigating against factory farms in this country. The biggest factory farms are Smithfield farms, which are polluting the environment. Smithfield controls 30% of pork production in this country. They're destroying farm communities, and guess who owns them? China.
Yeah, China.
So if we're concerned about China infiltrating our country, we ought to start with our food supply, because they can starve us. And they're buying American farmland, they're buying American food production companies. And guess what else? I spent a lot of the last couple of years I wrote a book about the Wuhan lab. Guess who was financing the Wuhan lab? We were. Guess who was financing coronavirus bioweapons development in the Wuhan lab? We were. We were giving that technology, that cutting edge technology to the Chinese. Oh, if we're really worried about the Chinese, we should stop funding their bioweapons development. We should stop them from controlling U.S. universities, which they're doing through millions, of dollars through their program of infiltrating and stealing our information. We should stop them from controlling our utilities, our communication systems. There's so many. We should stop deindustrializing our country and sending all of our factories over to China. If we're really worried about it, that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be going after TikTok. We have destroyed this generation of kids, and they can't buy houses. The kids who are using TikTok, we're destroying their capacity to start businesses. The one place that a lot of them are finding a gateway for their entrepreneurial energies is TikTok.
That's right.
They're going on TikTok, they're starting businesses. We should be proud of that. We should encourage them. And there's not a big impediment, to them getting on it. They're not charging people the way that Meta is going to start charging verified accounts, and for boosting. You can go on there. If you have an imagination, if you're resourceful, if you're entrepreneurial, you can figure out a way to make money. And there are hundreds of thousands of people in this generation who are doing that. And now we're going to take that away from them. It is crazy. What they're doing is sickening, and they're all bought and paid for, and they're doing things that are absolutely antithetical to every American value that I'm familiar with.
We see it every day. We see young people on here begging for help, reaching out, just trying to find ways to pay their basic bills, and people on TikTok forming communities around them and lifting them up. Is it okay with you if I bring up Ian Carroll? He's actually interviewing Nicole Shanahan next week, I think on Twitter. And he has a question for you. Can I bring him up to ask a question?
Sure, you bring up anybody you want.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to bring up Ian right now, and we're going to get a question. Oh, wait. There it is. Perfect. All right, Ian, I'm going to have you step into the box. We're going to see how long it takes, and we'll be able to do one or two. Tony, can you make me smaller and make Mr. Kennedy bigger? I don't know how to do that. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Ian.
Hey, Bobby, thanks for coming in to talk to us on TikTok. It's really cool to see a presidential candidate engaging with people where they are. I want to just point out that you're the only presidential candidate that I've ever seen in my lifetime actually speak about the threat that agencies like the CIA pose to the First Amendment and American democracy if they're left unchecked. Have you given any thought to how you might implement safeguards if you're elected that will help protect freedom of speech and the other amendments to the Constitution from our own national security complex that might endure beyond your presidency?
Well, in order for it to guarantee that it will endure beyond my presidency, I would have to do it through legislation, which I'm not confident I can get through the houses. But I can tell you this, my first day in office, I'm going to issue an executive order that forbids any federal employee in any agency from participating in either propagandizing the American people or in censoring them. In any act of censorship, you will lose your job if you do that under the Kennedy administration. I'm also going to have a federal order, executive order, that says that any federal official who lies to Americans or lies publicly in conjunction with their official duties will also lose their job. We're going to stop the lying, we're going to stop the propaganda, and we're going to stop the censorship. And, if I can do that for 8 years, and I will root out the people in those agencies who are running the censorship cartel, and we already know who a lot of them are. And I'm going to disband the divisions and branches of those agencies that are propagandizing American people. And, the CIA and its charter says they can't do that. The Smith-Mundt Act said they can't do it. And we've, in recent years, they were doing it anyway. They had a secret program, the CIA, for many years called Operation Mockingbird, and it was exposed in 1973 by the House Select Assassinations Committee when they started investigating the CIA. And that year, Carl Bernstein, who's one of the two Washington Post reporters who uncovered Watergate, published a major investigative article in Rolling Stone magazine showing that 400 of the top journalists in our country and editors in our country at the Washington Post, the New York Times, and CBS, ABC, NBC were CIA assets, were paid CIA assets whose job was to lie to the American public, to distort history, to distort politics, to serve the agency agenda. And the agency, when that was exposed before Congress, agreed to dismantle this illegal program. Nobody was punished for it. They agreed to dismantle it. They continue, the CIA, to be the biggest funder of journalism around the world. So they funnel $10 billion a year, through USAID to control journalists, to pay off journalists, blackmail, bribe people. They own many of the important newspapers and television stations in the developing world and across Europe. And they acknowledge that they do that, but they are not allowed to propagandize the American people prior to 2014. And during the Obama administration, those rules, the Obama White House issued a series of executive orders that gave the CIA a justification for ignoring those rules, and now they're, full blast. There's a couple of historians, David Talbot, who's a CIA historian, another CIA historian called Dick Russell, who have done articles recently that show how the CIA has taken control of major journals, particularly on the American left, the Daily Beast, controlled by them, Salon, Slate. Rolling Stone is now, which was a counterculture magazine when I was growing up. It was the enemy of the CIA. It was exposing them like in 1973. Yeah. Today it's controlled. The editor is a guy called Noah Schlackman, who comes out of the national security state. And if you read all of their articles, it's all about promoting, the CIA agenda, the Ukraine war, vaccination for everybody, etc. And David Talbot has done another series showing how many of the major journals in this country, particularly on the liberal left, are now controlled by the CIA. So they're in full force, and we need to end it. And I, as president, I'm going to end it. My father had a plan for reforming the CIA. My uncle, President Kennedy, did too. And actually, in the last tranche of documents that, all of the documents relevant to my uncle's murder, were required to be released under the Kennedy Assassination Documents Act. By 2017, President Biden promised to release them. President Trump promised to release them. Both of these presidents got into office and caved into the CIA, which does not want them released. And one of the documents in the most recent tranche that got released was a plan that my uncle, President Kennedy, had for reforming the CIA that were written by two of his aides, Dick Goodwin and Arthur Schlesinger. My father, a week before he was murdered, he was asked by a journalist, Pete Hamill, what he was going to do about the CIA. And he told Hamill, and it was basically the same plan my uncle had, which is to separate the clandestine division, what they call the plans division, which is the dirty tricks division that does, fixing elections, assassinating foreign leaders, murdering, blackmailing, bribing, labor unions, etc. And he was going to separate that division from the espionage division. The espionage is we need the CIA. That means information gathering and analysis, and the CIA ought to be doing that, but it should not be doing these dirty tricks. And if it is, it should be completely separate from that other division so that there can be accountability. So if somebody's looking over their shoulder and saying, wait a minute, you killed one terrorist in Afghanistan with a drone, but you also killed 6 of his brothers who weren't terrorists, and now he's got another 6 brothers who are all terrorists, and you've turned the whole village against us. Is that a good outcome? There's no questions like that are ever asked by the CIA. They overthrow a leader and they write it off as a triumph, like they did with the first democratically elected president of Iran in 1953. They overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh to keep oil prices, in the control of Texaco and BP. But what happened? And that was a big triumph for the CIA, but we're still dealing with the blowback from that.
Yes.
And so, that never happens. And
You can look and see also what women looked like in Iran in the 60s and 70s and what they look like today after so much intervention, right?
Yeah.
How their rights have been scaled back and how they don't have the ability to live a life of education and participation in the democratic state. And you can see what happens when we impose ourselves in those situations and the natural outcomes of that.
Yeah.
We do have I knew that you would have an amazing answer to that. So I really appreciate you taking the time. And I'm so glad you are not afraid to speak about those harder parts of our government and how they affect American citizens. So thanks for taking the time.
Well, thank you. And thanks for standing up for free speech. I mean, all of you guys on TikTok are warriors now, and you're fighting for something that's absolutely critical, which is America's right to get their information from any source that they want, not to have some congressman with a low IQ telling them where and from whom they can get their information. It's outrageous that those guys think they have it, and what they're doing is illegal. It's unconstitutional. It's antithetical to American values. And I want to thank all of you for standing up against this outrage.
Bobby, can I bring up James next? He's an independent journalist that has a question for you on Citizens United. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to bring James up next, and then Tony. James, can you go on ahead and send me up a request? I can't see you. Tony, help me.
Amazing investigative journalism. He's worked with Crystal Sagra on Breaking Points. He's a very great evidence-based journalist.
All right, I'm going to bring him up now, if I can. Where's he at?
I'm here.
All right, there you are. Okay, perfect. James, go on ahead.
Hey, thank you so much, Bobby, for joining us. Can I call you that? Is that I just launched into that?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Well, as a citizen journalist, which, by the way, I covered one of your rallies a few months ago in Vegas, and it's amongst some of the most diverse crowds I've ever seen. Anybody who's a former Trump supporter, Bernie, somewhere in between. So it's really amazing to see. But yes, the question I wanted to ask you today, naturally, as a citizen journalist, I believe the First Amendment is paramount in the fight against tyranny. But according to the Supreme Court, their decision on Citizen United in 2010, money is also considered a form of speech, which means that those groups, whether they be corporations or individuals with unlimited money, can actually silence speech or at the very least control the speech of others. Now, do you think that ruling was in alignment with the Constitution? And if not, what would you do as president to reverse Citizens United?
No, and let me give you a little bit of a history. America functionally lost its democracy in the 1880s at a time that was called the Gilded Age. And it was, because these robber barons gained control of the United States government, and these big, effectively billionaires, but, at this time, the first billionaire was John D. Rockefeller around 1901. He was one of the leaders, but Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Morgans, the Fricks, the Whitneys, and they all sat on these overlapping boards that controlled all of the industry in this country: the oil industry, the cotton industry, the sugar industry, the rail industry. They were called the trusts, and they controlled everything. At that time, there was no direct election of senators. The senators were chosen by the state legislatures. You could easily purchase the state legislature for a few dollars. And it was said that the only legislature that was not for sale was the Pennsylvania legislature, because they were fully owned by John D. Rockefeller, and he wasn't selling any of them. But the legislatures picked the senators, and the senators who ran the political parties would then pick the president. So it gave these robber barons control over the White House and the Senate and all of the instrumentalities of our government. And then something happened. There was a popular movement. There was a populist movement in the countryside and agricultural areas that was Democratic. There was a progressive movement in the cities that was Republican. And they got together, and there was a group of muckraking journalists: Ida Tarbell, Sinclair Lewis, Upton Sinclair, and many others, who started writing about the Rockefellers and the corruption. And the American people got outraged, and they elected a president, Teddy Roosevelt, who was part of the oligarchy, but he was not scared of it, and he was rebellious, and he was willing to take them down. And they passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, and they dismantled they broke up Standard Oil, the biggest company in the world. They passed a 40-hour work week. They got rid of child labor. They gave women the vote for the first time. They made direct election of senators. They passed all these reforms, but the most important one was a law they passed in 1908 that made it illegal for corporations to donate to federal political candidates. Well, that law, we got our democracy back. And that law stayed in place for 100 years. And then in 2008, a business-oriented Supreme Court, as you said, in the Citizens United case, issued this crazy holding that said that a political donation is speech. Oh, it enjoys First Amendment protection. So you can't regulate campaign finance. There's no other country in the world that considers money to be speech. And of course it isn't. It's legalized bribery. But all of these enormous problems, the corporate takeover of our government really just accelerated at that point. And now our government is this corrupt merger of state and corporate power. The corporations own all the agencies. They become sock puppets for the industry. They are no longer representing the welfare of the American public, but rather the mercantile interest of the corporations they're supposed to regulate. What do we do about it? It's very, very hard now to regulate campaign finance. And the only way, in my view, that we get rid of Citizens United is with a constitutional amendment. And that means we have to get 26 states to adopt a law that says we need to get rid of Citizens United case, and that that the federal government has the capacity, that Congress can regulate campaign finance laws. And one of the things I'm going to do as soon as I get into the White House is I'm going to strongly push a constitutional amendment in all of these states to get rid of the Citizens United law. It's the only way we can do it, but it's absolutely a necessity if we're going to reclaim American democracy from from this new oligarchy of billionaires and the corporate kleptocracy that now governs our that is now subverting America's exemplary democracy.
Absolutely. Totally. I mean, that's to me, that's the number one thing. That's the root of all issues, no matter what issue you're looking at. It stems down to, okay, what is the money telling us? So I appreciate you for coming on and answering that question.
I 100% agree.
Bobby, we're going to go to Jason Linton. He has a very large following here on TikTok, and he is the head of a foster family that has a lot of us that are very invested in all of the things that go on in his household and the community he's building. He has a really amazing question on sort of what his children are facing as they go to university and their ability to exercise their First Amendment rights. I'm going to let him go on ahead.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity to address you directly. This is the first in history that a presidential candidate has done this, and we really appreciate you for having the courage to come on here and face us and our questions. And this is one of my questions: is one of the issues that have been taking center stage in the media these past several weeks is an increase in the crackdowns on students protesting the genocide in Gaza. Do you believe that their right to protest on college campuses should be protected?
I absolutely do. I would differ with you and with them about whether there's a genocide going on in Gaza. I think there is a genocide going on in the other Mideastern countries. It's a genocide against Christians and Jews. I do not believe that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide, but I believe that students ought to be able to protest it. They ought to be able to speak about it. They ought to be able to voice their protests, and as long as they do it peacefully and without interfering with the rights of other students to get an education or damaging property. If it's peaceful protest, it's absolutely protected by the First Amendment, and it's something that we all ought to encourage, whether we agree with it or not.
Thank you so much. I'm bringing up Lindsay right now. She has a question about small businesses and some of what they're facing. Lindsay, I'm going to bring you into the box.
Hello.
Hello.
Lindsay Taylor. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Hello, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Kennedy. Hi, I'm just your mom on TikTok. My question is, if TikTok gets banned, 7 million small businesses would be shut down, and millions of creators and their families would lose their livelihood due to such an extreme and chaotic and almost unanimous bipartisan vote. What would that do to the economy? And if these business owners and creators suddenly lost their revenue because of the ban, would they have a right to sue somehow due to the loss of income? And if not, could anyone file on our behalf like an attorney general?
I don't know if you have the numbers, Bobby, but right now we know that TikTok is paying out about $23 billion a year to small businesses and supporting over 300,000 jobs in the United States each year through small businesses.
Yeah, well, those are jobs we can't afford to lose. And I'm going to litigate on this issue against TikTok and on the illegal constraints on the First Amendment. These are Fifth Amendment issues. They're taking people's business without due process, without just compensation. It's the same thing they did, using the so-called COVID emergency. They shut down 3.3 million businesses in this country with no due process, no just compensation. They shifted $4 trillion in wealth from the American middle class to this, new oligarchy of billionaires. They created President Biden and President Trump created a billionaire a day for 500 days during the global lockdowns. And the most important impact was on American democracy, because American democracy is rooted in Main Street businesses. These are people, the ownership society. This is the American middle class. These are the businesses that, I grew up with in my town, the local hardware store, the local um, restaurants, you go in there, the local bookstore where there you go in there and there's a plaque on the wall from the Boy Scouts. These are the businesses that hired my kids during the summer. They paid for my children's hockey jerseys. They paid for their little league uniforms, and we shut them all down. And and guess what? We were all given a lesson in how to learn how to use Amazon for 3 years. And it's very seductive because you find a picture of something you want and you press a send and it's in your driveway the next day. But Amazon's not paying local taxes in our community, and they're not hiring our kids. And in fact, Amazon doesn't pay any taxes at all. Amazon last year paid 0 federal taxes, 0. And so, and that, is the beneficiary when they're shutting down TikTok. Well, guess who wants to shut down TikTok? Meta wants to shut down TikTok. The people who profited off the COVID pandemic, who got rich, super rich, Google, all of these big platforms who now are seeing TikTok as a threat and they want to get rid of it. And so, it's a threat to me. There should be diversity. There should be a diversity of information sources. And TikTok has proven itself this extraordinary business opportunity, particularly people who are millennials or Gen Xers who have very, very few paths to prosperity in their lives. And so many of them are finding it on TikTok, and it's just a crime against that generation has been victimized and destroyed by the baby boom generation. By all of these congressmen and senators who pretend they're trying to safeguard something about our country, and they're actually destroying it. They're all the ones that supported COVID lockdowns, and now they're supporting this, and it is a crime. And anyway, I'm going to sue them, and I hope you guys will too.
That is a perfect lead in to Tara Lynn's question. We're going to Tara Lynn Romero. Tara Lynn built her TikTok community, but when the government tried to come and take her property from her, they tried to adversely take her property that she had purchased, and she built a community that fights for property rights all across the United States. And they've helped defend owners' rights in multiple jurisdictions. And she has a couple of questions for you. Go ahead, Tara. Carolyn.
Hi, thanks so much, Tiffany and Bobby. I echo everyone's appreciation for you having the courage to come live and sit with us and answer our questions. So I want to start with that. My question to you is this. A lot of people want to know what they can do to help fight the forced divestiture of TikTok. We know that you filed a lawsuit. Several creators have also filed a lawsuit. But what can, the 4.9 thousand people watching live here today do to fight this forced divestiture?
Well, there may be opportunities for class action suits, particularly for people who own businesses, and that I think there's other attorneys who are using other legal theories. And, it's not just the business. TikTok itself is only 20% owned by, the 2 Chinese inventors, but, 60% owned by foreign investors, including 7,000 Americans. And, they're taking the property away from those investors as well. I think there's a broad range of people who have claims, and I have not researched the legal claims for people who are running businesses, but this just seems to me like such an obvious affront to the Fifth Amendment guarantee of due process and just compensation when the government takes away your business. This is what the Fifth Amendment was written for, to prevent this kind of government overreach. And it's Congress today is a joke. It's a joke. It's the idea that they would do this is and pretend that they're doing it because they don't like China when they're letting China do all of this other mischief in our country is crazy.
And she had a follow-up that is short, but I'm going to let her do it. Go ahead with number 6.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tiffany. Here's the follow-up question. As many of us know, Biden has a TikTok account. What's your opinion on that, and do you find it hypocritical?
I would say if you look up hypocrisy in the dictionary, they should have a little picture next to it of Biden's TikTok account. As he said, he's going to maintain that TikTok account until after November. Oh, if it's so dangerous, if there's such a national security, emergency that they're going to close down all of these businesses for TikTokers and injure the economy so dramatically for national security reasons, well, why is he keeping his TikTok account? Why doesn't he stand up? During the American Revolution, there were a lot of Americans who put their property on the line. They put their lives on the line. Many of them died to give us the Constitution. They put their reputations on the line, their salaries, everything. And, President Biden is trying to do something here, have his cake and eat it too. He's it's like wearing the American flag on your lapel. That's an easy kind of patriotism. I'm going to shut down my neighbor's business, but I'm not going to shut down my own. I'm not going to let it even interfere with my election, business plan. I'm just going to shut down your business out of my patriotism. That's what he's doing. It's comical and offensive.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Guys, I think I can take one more question, but I'm almost up to an hour now.
You have given us far more than we expected, and we appreciate it. I'm going to ask, what would you say to all of the young people of America that have found TikTok as their home, the place where they're finding ways to make ends meet, the place where they're finding ways to circumvent their impossible housing solutions, the place where they've come to find ways to coordinate with people on things they're passionate about, whether it's protesting at the Capitol with us on TikTok or in universities over a war overseas. Like, what would you say to them about the prospect that so many of them have lost their hope, and the government, it seems like, it just keeps taking things, and now it feels like they're taking their voice. They're on the verge of giving up, so many of them. What would you say?
I would say stop complaining and organize, start fighting back. And like I said, this is the new American Revolution. Free speech is the front line, and this is just one of the many, many attacks on it. And we all need to get together and fight for this. And, my campaign is going to do it. If I get in there, this is not going to happen. And, I'll fight for your right to speak, for your right to organize, for your right to run a business, for the right to get information from any source that you want. That's what America's about. We're supposed to believe in democracy, and we need to do everything we can. And I know a lot of you have organized. We need to do everything we can to stop them from doing this. And I will be there to help you all along the way.
We're so grateful for you coming on. We are grateful for the bravery of facing us without any prep. And thank you, even though your flight was late, thank you for taking the time in the car to meet with us. We have had tens of thousands of people come through this live in the last couple hours. And while Mr. Kennedy is going to step off, the rest of us are going to stay on, and we're going to continue this conversation. We still had a ways to go. So we're so grateful you were here. I appreciate you taking the time, the energy, the effort, and for honestly just putting the questions of these everyday Americans ahead of what some journalist that is paid to ask you a specific question would ask you. I'm just really grateful for that.
Anytime. Thank you. And thanks for bringing the fight to Congress.
Thanks, Bobby. You have an amazing night, and we hope to have you back soon. Truly.
Thank you. You guys.
Have a good night. Well, wow.
Thanks, Bobby.
Woo.
That was so cool. It was so cool that he was in the car. He's like, my flight was late. I'm driving. I'm just a dude with a phone, but I'm in a car and I can talk on the phone to the people. That was pretty cool, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think.
Go ahead, Stephen, please.
I said I agree. I think it's firsthand representation of the access to information that TikTok allows us to consume. You know, just the availability and the access to information, regardless of who anybody chooses that they're going to be voting for. In my opinion, this is just an example of our leaders that are standing behind and supporting our right, our First Amendment right to freedom of speech, as well as the Fifth Amendment right that this TikTok ban poses to every single American user. 170 million American users of the application. So,
Yeah, can I just say it? I was trying to keep up with the chat while he was talking, and this is exactly why they're not going to allow him to be on the debate stage, because I could see people in there saying, "Man, I didn't like this guy," or like, "Now I'm confused on voting day," because I think people have their preconceptions of maybe his ideas or what he stands for. He's some kind of kook. But then when you give him like 20, 30 minutes to speak, then you start to get a better understanding of what he actually believes in, his vision for the country. And this is the polls, the requirements, I guarantee you, as soon as he hits 15%, I don't know if people know the requirements to be on the base stage, it's 15% in 4 polls. And right now, I think he has 3 polls that he's above 15%, but I guarantee if he gets that 4th one, it'll be like, oh, well, we got 20% or some other bull crap they're going to make up. So, I just wish there was more opportunity for regular people who aren't as engaged in politics like myself and some of the other people in here that are just day in, day out on this, just to like, hey, just get a sense of, who's actually running and give them a platform so then people can actually make up their mind.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, like I said, I've had the benefit of meeting him in person. I do want to start to redirect some of our conversation back in just a minute, because this is not a campaign event for Bobby Kennedy. We wanted to talk to him about the ban. We wanted to talk to him about First Amendment issues. I'm grateful he was here. I hope everybody follows every creator in these boxes. This is the first town hall we're doing. This is not the last town hall we're doing. We wanted to show a proof of concept. We wanted to show that we can demand more of our politicians. We can bring them to meet us where we are. We can demand that they come on here and that they answer our questions without filtration. He didn't get to see our questions. He didn't get to screen our questions. They didn't ask that I put up a single question. They trusted that he would have the answers that people needed. And if you didn't agree with him on one of his answers, then that's going to happen, right? But we are allowed to demand more than we are demanding now. We don't need a moderator that is paid by one of 5 billionaires that controls every article, television show, and thing that comes across our screen to tell us what questions are important to us. We're allowed to come up here and ask those questions. Tens of thousands of people passed through this live over the last hour. Tens of thousands of people on a screen. We didn't need to fill a stadium. We were here. He came and he met us where we are, and we're allowed to demand that of other politicians. So this is the first TikTok town hall, but I am already planning our next TikTok town hall. And I hope everybody follows everyone here, because we are democratizing democracy. We are bringing democracy to the people. We are not going to keep letting them tell us how to vote, what to care about, or who to hate. Because I'm sick of them telling me I'm supposed to hate all of you guys when we have way more in common than we have apart. Way more. They need us divided. They need us to hate each other. Because as long as we hate each other and we fight with each other, we won't work together and organize to fight them and to demand more of them. That's my bully pulpit for a moment. Ian, I'm going to ask you and Tony to take over for a minute. I have to go to the bathroom. I drank too much water because I was nervous. I'll be right back. I'm human. Sorry, guys. I really got to go.
Nice work. Yeah, I was just going to
If
quickly
you can find
point
Legendary
out.
Jay, I'm trying to bring him up.
Cool. I was just going to quickly point out that one of the answers that he gave is one that I think we don't talk about enough. It was early on when he talked about how politicians have made it normal for them to lie to us now. And it's a certain barrier to free speech when we accept politicians lying, that puts a barrier to free speech that we don't talk about nearly enough, because if they're allowed to just lie to us and mislead us, then how can we even, especially when they're lying to us and misleading us through the filters of a mass media monopoly that is already filtering the questions and already filtering the access, so no one can press them on their lies if they don't choose to be pressed. And so there's this huge apparatus that allows them to just tell us lies and get away with it. And when he comes on here, and I think it might have been Lindsay, you asked him a question about, who was that asking the question about the protest? Oh, it might have been Dad Life Jason. And he gave his answer about Zionism, that he didn't think that there was genocide and all that. Like, he disagreed. But that way it was like we have direct access to either ask him more questions or to just to not have that filtration, which is regardless of whether you agree with an answer or not, it at least gets us back to honesty and accountability for those answers.
That's the funny part to me too, is we're so willing to discard an independent candidate, the quickness with which people will disregard it. I mean, without looking at the situation we're in. If you look at private equity, you look at the military industrial complex, you look at big ag, you look at the insider trading, you look at all these things that they've all participated in. And yet he just gave us a synopsis off the top of his head, by the way, off the top of his head, about all these other things that we are all sitting here nodding and being like, yep, this, I agree with this. And then one thing, and it can turn off an entire voter base. And I'm just really confused sometimes at this polarity that we see. I'm not going to sit here and pine for any candidate, really, but I think we all need to be really careful of how quick we are to judge an independent candidate at a time when we need an independent candidate more than ever. And I would just be really careful of that. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do or who to vote for. Just make sure you're holding everybody to that standard. Because
I want to ask all of you guys, do you want to go first, though?
Tony, I agree with
quick
you.
Question.
Sorry.
No, you go.
No, go ahead, Stephen.
I just wanted to say I agree with you, Tony. It's not a matter of who we choose to vote for. This was not a campaign rally for RFK. This was somebody who has a voice, who is in a position of leadership, that is here saying, look, our First Amendment rights are on the line, and I support your fight to overturn this TikTok ban. And that's what this conversation is about. So ultimately, the more voices that we have in a position of leadership that are willing to stand behind us, everybody here, the people in this live stream, the people that are commenting, every viewer that has come through, those are the voices that we need. Whether we're voting for those voices or not, we still need them to be heard.
One of the questions there at the end about things that people can do regarding trying to stop the TikTok ban, I'm going to keep stressing that it might feel fruitless for a while, but I promise you there are states in the United States where your attorney general might be willing to defend your right to engage in interstate commerce or defend your right to free speech. There probably aren't a lot of states, but there are states, I promise you, especially with attorney generals that aren't running for re-election, if free speech is their language, they might be willing to. So I encourage all of you to contact your governor's offices and your attorney general's offices, especially in the states that have a more bipartisan makeup, like swing states. Ian, are you talking to your dog?
He muted.
I don't know what that
I
was.
actually have to pick up my son, so I'm going to drop out. You can bring somebody else up. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Lindsay, I was so glad you were here. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for trusting me to think. When I called all these guys that are way fancier than me on TikTok and they said yes, I'm so grateful that everybody trusted me to do this first TikTok town hall, to come here and ask hard questions. And they put so much effort and work and thought into it. So I'm just going to say one more time, please, please, please follow all of the creators in here. Please. You don't have to follow me if you don't want to, but you should follow everybody else. I hope you follow me, but follow everybody else. Please.
I'm gonna have to drop out as well, but thank you so much for having me. Thanks for creating this forum so we can all share our collective voices. It's such an important thing, and it shows so many people that are watching how easy it is to participate, but mostly how important it is to participate in the conversation, to let your voice be heard, because that's what gets things moving. Like what RFK said at the end, he said, stop complaining and start organizing. And
Yes.
that's what needs to be done. And it doesn't happen unless we have a conversation. So thank you for this conversation. I appreciate you so much.
I'm so glad you were here, Jason. Thank you so much.
Thank
My
you.
love to the family, truly.
Take it
Thank
easy,
you.
guys. Bye, Steven.
Just saying,
Bye.
Tiffany, I was kind of curious to ask the people that are here still is, do you guys think that, so if we show that this format works and we start getting politicians to come directly to us and they start to get engagement directly from social media apps, do you think it's actually realistic, like that in the next 4 or 8 years, we could start to make it so effective that politicians are forced to come to us? Because if they don't, all their opponents are going to be getting more engagement than them. The way that technology tends to sort of force people to use it because it's so useful.
I'm
Yes.
going
Do
to
you guys
say
think
the
that's a
dirty thing
realistic take?
first. The entire
100%.
purpose of this is that I fundamentally believe we will absolutely do that much sooner than 4 to 8 years.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say right now that a big goal of a number of people in these boxes, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but some people that I've asked directly have said, is that we want to lift up the independent or the small candidates that aren't taking money from PACs, that aren't taking money from billionaires, that just want to serve their communities and don't have a fighting chance. This platform can give it to them without needing to rent a stadium for 10,000. We can bring them the 10,000. We don't need a stadium. And financially, for those smaller candidates, the people that aren't taking that money, why wouldn't we? We will give them their stage if they won't let them on the stage. And that's exactly why they want to shut TikTok down, by the way. They see what we can do here. But why would we not? Why would every independent candidate, and I'm not saying an independent party, I mean any non-backed candidate that is not funded by a billionaire or some mega PAC that is telling them what to do and how to do everything they do, that doesn't have an independent thought or an independent desire to truly serve instead of just getting there to insider trade. Why would they not seek out this type of a platform when you don't have to spend the money to find your audience and your support?
Sure.
We can deliver them the party of TikTok. And that's what we're
Wouldn't that be
trying to do.
amazing?
Democratize democracy. Bringing it to the people.
I look forward to the day that we have a candidate that is running for office who only utilizes the reach of free advertising on social media platforms to achieve their success. The digital age of campaigning is not in 8 years. It is already here.
Now.
There just needs to be one candidate. It doesn't even have to be the presidential level. It could be a congressman, a senator, whatever lower level.
An incumbent.
And they need to prove that they can win without going through the traditional path. Because honestly, like my cynical outlook is all these are politicians. They want to win. So whatever it is that gets them the win, they will do. So if it's going through us, through more democratized platforms, through talking to regular people, that's what they're going to do. The only reason why they take that money from AIPAC or whoever is out there is because it's going to help them win. But if that no longer helps them win, they don't need that AIPAC money. They just go through us because we can deliver them the victory.
And I'm going to say fundamentally, I stress this over and over and over again, but there are good people that want to run for office and are stopped from succeeding in that endeavor every single day by the simple fact that they can't raise enough money to show the world the good they can do. And instead, what happens is absolute power is corrupting absolutely. And we find these dinosaurs that got into Congress before anyone in this window was born. They have been there since before we were born, okay? And they get into Congress and they cling to power like a goddamn barnacle suffocating a sea turtle, right? And they stay there forever just trying to scrape power. They have enough money. They've got the money. And you see creatures like Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein that are quite literally, Dianne Feinstein was on her deathbed literally in a wheelchair, and her aide wheeled her in and lifted her hand like a sock puppet and said the word I, and you heard it on the tape. They're like, you've got to say I. And she goes, where am I? You've got to say I. They made her vote. She should have been at home with her grandchildren, her cushy-ass Senate pension fund, and she should have enjoyed her retirement. But she was so desperate to cling to that power because you get the wrong kind of people serving. when the only indication or the only like motivation they have is more and more power. We need to find people that want to serve for the right way. And those are the exact same people. They're the exact same people that will be the ones that will help us to set new law that will create the term limits and get rid of the insider trading. We can do this. We can do this. I realize everybody thinks I'm just some altruistic like whack job when I say that. But I believe fundamentally it's possible because they can't control how we communicate anymore. They can't.
And it could be inspiring enough, you know,
Yes.
not only at the state and federal level, but in your local elections as well. Get the right people to run for commissioner, mayor,
Yes.
city manager, your council. All of it matters. And the longer we wait and the longer we shun independent candidates and just go with party leanings and things like that, the more we're just going to see the same old, over and over again.
You know, Santa Corky's in the audience. Santa, I'm so happy you're here. If you want to come up, you just send the request. I love Santa Corky so much. I love him.
I need to jump. I have
It's okay.
a 10:30
We're actually at the end. We've
a.m.
come
meeting.
to 10:07.
Yeah.
We are at the wind down point, guys. I hope we get on some more lives. Maybe we'll start something weekly or bi-weekly where a bunch of us jump on to continue our conversations. I'm hoping to have an announcement on our next TikTok town hall in the next couple weeks. Again, my last plea is that you follow all of the creators that were here tonight, that you throw confetti at them and all the hearts and all of the things and the dancing teddy bears and whatever it is you want to give them, because they did an enormous amount of work to prep for today. Steven has to get ready to go. He's in China, okay? He got up early in China to come on here today for us, right? Like, that's not an easy thing to do. And I'm very grateful.
Ironic that we're sitting here talking about our First Amendment right to
It's
freedom of
amazing.
speech
It wasn't
and
shut down, though.
expression.
It's
But
so
yet,
weird that
I
we
am
weren't shut
here
down
in
or
China,
censored.
exercising my right to freedom
right.
of speech in a foreign country. They say doesn't allow that. So here I am. Yeah.
Well,
Are you
So
using a
thank
VPN?
you.
does anyone have any final thoughts you'd like to
I was
say
gonna
before we
ask.
close it down?
I was just gonna ask if he's using a VPN because I had some issues in China when I was there.
Off and on. I haven't had to 100%, so no.
I've got one thing I want to say just because I was watching people in the chat when Kennedy was up, and so many people were like, "Is this real?" And then a couple other people were like, "Is this historic?" Yes. For those of you here, the 2,000 of you still here, congratulations. You were part of a historic event, which was this town hall on TikTok with a presidential candidate. And Tiff, you've been giving us a lot of kudos, and it's all deserved. I am so honored to be a part of this group. But girl, round of applause for you because you had the audacity to do
Claps in
this
the comments.
and to execute it perfectly. I mean, 10 out of 10. We'll follow you anywhere. Whatever you want to do, we'll do this all over again.
Well, the next round we'll have to do, we'll more candidates, more private equity, more monopolies, more to talk about. We're going to be here.
Couple things before we wrap. I want to say
Go, Tony.
to all the creators in here, if you want to leave a comment really quick, there's a lot of people who want to follow you, and for whatever reason, they're not able to tap on the windows to do so. So if all of y'all want to leave a little something down there and do that. And the other thing, there's so many people that seem hopeless in the comments tonight. The apathy is real. And I'm going to tell you right now, apathy was the wagon that brought us here. And the less we participate, the more it's just going to keep going where it goes. And if we want change, we kind of have to just pick up a shovel and start working on it in your own little corner, in your own little niche, in the way that you know how. Doesn't mean everybody's got to run for a seat. There's a lot of ways to build up community, state, and communities and states happen to make up the United States that we call a federal government. So don't forget that part. Hope is everything. If we can make it through ice ages, we can make it through this.
Callie, do you have any last words for us today?
No, but a bug just flew on my computer screen, so no.
Thank you so much for being here, Kelly. Thank you for coming to DC and introducing me to a new friend and like someone that's so supportive. I'm so glad you're here. I would not, you ride or die with us, girl.
Yes,
girl,
thank you
she
so much.
fights and fights and fights and fights like hell for her little corner of TikTok and the amazing business she's built. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Truly.
Sorry, that bug definitely scared me. But thank you all for joining the fight. Thank you for everybody who joined. Thank you for everyone who joined in DC while we were there. Thank you for everybody who contacted your representatives. I know it
Yes.
feels like it didn't matter or that it didn't turn into the result we wanted, but being involved in our government is what's important. I was talking with some other people that are on this live that are from South Carolina or making plans. Our representatives like refuse to even respond and listen to us. And so we're making plans for the next election cycle to actively support whoever is running against them. And so it's the local elections that are important, that build up to the bigger elections. Make sure you're participating in all the ranges, all parts of it, because each of those levels matter and affect you in your daily life.
Yep, absolutely. James, do you have any last words for us?
Well, it's just a really big time appreciation and honor to be here with each and every one of you guys. I know you guys bring different things to the table. I'm glad we're all here, very diverse crowd. So I love that. And I look forward to I know, Tiffany, I'm going to come out to DC in like a couple of weeks, actually.
Yeah.
And also, I think I'm going to see you two there, Tony, but every single one of you that are still here, I look forward to seeing more of your content and then collaborating or doing something to just really, really, grateful to be here with you guys.
Thank you, James. And Ian, final thoughts?
Yeah, I got to ping pong off what Tony was saying earlier about apathy. Apathy is seditious. It's subversive. It creeps into our culture. It creeps into our minds, and it is, if you give into that path, you create more of that path, and if you give into hope, you create more of that hope. And so we can all see our world changing around us, if for the better, if we want to see that, and for the worse, if we want to see that. And this is clearly an opportunity here to see a change for the better in our political system, in our social systems, in our culture. So I would love for people to leave this feeling a little bit of hope for our voices, for our politics, for change in the future. It might not happen immediately, might not happen right now, but it will happen because inevitably the playing field is being leveled, and it's because we're all working to level it. And so obviously we need to close on saying, Tiffany, you have done amazing work to level it. You did amazing work to put this together. And you are definitely the one that did the work behind the scenes, and you are the star of this show. And we appreciate you so much. So thank you, Tiffany. And if anyone in the audience is not following Tiffany Cianci, follow Tiffany Cianci. She does a million things in every direction to help make the world a better place for regular people, for businesses. So thank you, Tiffany. You're the best.
Yes, I don't think people have any sense of like how much she does and how many hours a day she operates. I've only recently got to know that, and I'm so impressed.
27 to 28 hours a day.
Yeah,
That's how much she's operating. Yeah.
I saw her with 2 phones earlier today. Yeah, we're
You
in the
did. He
same
posted a
building
picture
right
because
now.
I was on 2 calls at the same time. I was like, just a second. I was over here. There's just
Like,
a second.
shit, I thought I was
I'm
busy.
talking to you.
Wonder Woman.
All right, for my closing thoughts, I'm just going to say that for anyone who's down there thinking we can't change things, a lot of people are thinking the big things, like we can't get somebody elected to the president, or we can't get a senator elected, or we can't. There are 100 ways to overturn the apple cart of monopoly, class division in this country, and wealth inequality. I have watched just recently, I mean so recently, like in the last 48 hours, as these huge systems of small businesses that are losing everything to private equity got together in groups and started winning court cases against massive monsters they never thought they had a chance against. Truly, monsters that had billions to spend. It's only through finding your voice and your community that you guys can work together. All of us can work together to actually change anything. And they being literally like the billionaire controlled state, the uniparty, the 2 wings of the same bird, the same millionaires that everyone that's elected in Congress right now works for, the status quo of their desire to keep insider trading and to work for those billionaires to keep that money train rolling through the station. They want you to believe we can't change anything. They want you to believe that. Do you know how many generations of people were told to believe they couldn't change anything and changed everything? So every generation, every single one. And we've never had the ability to organize. We've never had the ability to communicate so effectively. We've never had the ability to access information so immediately. And if ever there were a time in history that we actually could work together and change everything, I assure you that moment is now. You know, it might not be today and it might not be tomorrow, but I promise you it starts today. Today it started by getting a presidential candidate polling at 16% to step away from giant rallies and to just get on TikTok and take random questions from strangers. And that means we can demand that of anybody we want. Anybody. And if they're not willing to do that, what do they have to hide? That's the only question we should be asking ourselves. If they're not willing to get on here and answer hard questions to their constituents, what do they have to hide? And that's how we're going to know who we need to lift up. We have 170 million people on this platform in America alone. You can change a lot of minds and a lot of hearts with that many voices. And you can lift up a lot of people with likes and with voices instead of money. We can change everything if we want to. And I wouldn't be fighting this hard if I didn't believe that. I wouldn't have fought as hard as I did to create this first town hall if I didn't believe that. And so I hope every single one of you leaves here truly believing that you are capable of wondrous things, amazing things, because you are. And I truly hope that all of you follow everyone and come back, because we have so much more to do. So much. And on that note, I'm going to shut it down, guys. Signing off for this evening from our very first TikTok town hall. We are so glad you guys were here. We are so grateful for the love and support and the turnout. And we can't wait to have you guys back next time. Everybody have an amazing night.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Toodaloo, kangaroos.
Bye, guys.
Homies.